There is a strange silence around a book that many ancient believers once knew well. A book quoted, copied, and discussed, yet missing from the Bible most people hold today. When something so familiar quietly disappears, it makes us wonder why. If you want to understand the history behind the Bible and the books that didn't make it in, subscribe and stay with me as we uncover this step by step. The Book of Enoch is not a modern discovery. It is an ancient Jewish text written long before the Bible took its final shape. For centuries, it circulated among communities that also treasured the writings we now call scripture. It was read aloud. It was studied. It shaped how people imagined the world, heaven, and the unseen order behind human history. To many early readers, Enoch did not feel foreign. It felt familiar. The book is named after Enai, a figure briefly mentioned in the Hebrew tradition as a man who walked closely with God. The Book of Enoch expands on that quiet mention and turns it into a long story. It describes visions of heaven, angels, judgment, and the future. It tries to explain why evil exists and how justice will come in the end. These were questions people lived with every day, so the book mattered to them. In the ancient Jewish world, reading a text did not always mean treating it as sacred in the same way later generations would. Some writings were seen as inspired, others were seen as wise, others were useful for teaching or reflection. The lines were not sharp at first. Communities debated and discussed over long periods of time. The Bible was not dropped from the sky as a finished book. It grew slowly through careful use. Early Christians inherited this wide library of Jewish writings. They did not start with a fixed Bible either. They read letters, stories, prayers, and teachings. They shared texts by hand. They copied what they valued. Over time, certain writings were read everywhere, while others were read only in some places. This difference mattered. When people talk about the Bible removing the Book of Enoch, it can sound sudden or dramatic, but history rarely works that way. Enoch was not thrown out, it was gradually left aside. As generations passed, communities began to agree on which books carried the deepest authority for faith and teaching. This was not about hiding ideas, it was about clarity and unity. One reason Enoch raised concern was authorship. The book claims to speak through an ancient figure, but scholars then and now understood it was written much later. In the ancient world, this practice was common and not always seen as dishonest. Still, when leaders asked which texts should guide belief, they favored writings with clear roots in known history and shared memory. Another concern was theology. Enoch uses heavy symbolism. Angels take center stage. The unseen world becomes detailed and complex. For some readers, this was meaningful. For others, it felt speculative. As beliefs became more defined, leaders wanted texts that spoke plainly and consistently across communities. Enoch did not always do that. Consistency mattered. The books that form the Bible told a connected story, even when written by different people. Enoch sometimes felt like it stood beside that story rather than within it. It asked big questions, but answered them in ways that not everyone agreed with. Over time, that difference became harder to ignore. There is also a simple historical reason for Enoch's fading place. Texts survive because people copy them. Copying was slow and expensive. Scribes chose what to preserve. Books read often were copied often. Books read less slowly vanished. In most regions, Enoch was not read regularly enough to survive in many copies. Only one major tradition preserved it fully, That alone shaped its future. This process was not controlled by a single group. There was no central office deciding what stayed and what went. Decisions emerged from practice. What was read in worship, what was taught to children, what helped communities stay grounded. Over centuries, agreement formed through use, not force. It is important to understand the difference between a book being influential and being included in the Bible. Many ancient writings influenced belief, language, and imagination without becoming scripture. Influence does not require inclusion. Enoch shaped how people thought, even as it slowly stepped out of the center. There is also something human at work here. We are drawn to missing things. A book labeled forbidden or excluded feels powerful. It feels like a secret. Psychologically, absence creates curiosity. What we do not have often feels more important than what we do. This does not mean the book was suppressed. It means our minds naturally lean toward mystery. When we imagine Enoch as removed, we may be projecting modern fears onto ancient processes. Ancient faith communities were not chasing secrets. They were searching for stability. They wanted shared ground. In a world without printing, without mass literacy, agreement mattered deeply. Respect for scripture has always gone hand in hand with discernment. Believers asked hard questions. They weighed texts carefully. They did not assume every ancient writing carried the same weight. This was not a loss of faith, it was an expression of it. The Book of Enoch still exists today. It can be read, it can be studied. It has value for understanding ancient thought and belief. But the Bible became what it is through long reflection on what best carried the core of faith forward. In the end, the story of Enoch is not about removal, it is about focus. Faith traditions narrowed their sacred texts not to limit truth, but to preserve it. They chose what anchored them, not what intrigued them most. This history reminds us that faith has never been simple or silent. It has always involved discussion, patience, and wisdom. Understanding that can bring calm rather than doubt, and it invites us to reflect quietly, with respect, on how truth has been carried through time.